This is 5.14 Integrated Pest Management. So our goal today is to describe what integrated pest management is and then describe its benefits and drawbacks. So integrated pest management is a bit different than your typical pest management plan and that its goal is to effectively control pests while minimizing disruptions to the environment. So it involves a lot of researching and monitoring of the pests, and instead of just identifying your pest and getting the best chemical to treat it, you go through and you find methods to target specific pest life cycles. So instead of waiting and just treating whatever you see, you might target the pests before they hatch. You may target the pests as adults before they reproduce, but it involves an increasing level of pest control from prevention up to intervention with the lowest to highest toxicity, with the goal to have the lowest amount of toxicity possible. So ways we could do this is to use biological control. So this is where you introduce a natural predator or a parasite or competitor to control your pest population. So you may want to attract these to your farm by planting plants that may bring in these beneficial predators, or you may buy them and bring them in yourself. So an example is buying nematodes to attack different pests. For example, they eat flies. They'll infect flies. So you may buy nematodes to spread in your farm in order to get rid of flies. Ladybugs will eat aphids off of your plants, so ladybugs are beneficial. Many pests prefer one type of crop, so you can use crop rotation. Instead of planting a monoculture, you may change from year to year. Rotating the crops seasonally can prevent the pest from becoming established because the crop that they may prefer is not there year after year, so it's going to disrupt that pest life cycle. It also keeps weeds from growing because it's going to keep the soil from being bare, so blocking that light to allow the weeds to grow. You can use intercropping, which is where you plant different crops intermixed. You can either do this in rows or alternating plants. And you use this when some plants can attract or repel specific pests or predators. So this goes along with biological control. In this example, Texas A&M used an intercropping in order to target specific pests. So if we look at what these different plants do, we see that the pepper here repels pests. So by repelling pests, you're using an intervention before the pests can even become established. The watermelon smothers weeds, so this also has an effect of repelling the pest. We see that okra attracts pollinators, so if pollinators, this is an attracting effect, so it's going to bring species to your plants. You can also use this if you want to lure pests away from your desired cash crop, the one that you're going to be getting money for. So you may plant a species next to it that you're not as invested in that will lure those pests away. So pros and cons of IPM, that's what the abbreviation for integrated pest management. It reduces the death and mutation of non-target species from chemical usage. So perhaps you've heard of DDT. At one point, we thought DDT was perfectly safe. What we found was that the bald eagle population, when the pesticide DDT came to be widespread, that they went from having 600 to 800 breeding pairs in the Chesapeake Bay to only 6. Once DDT was banned, breeding population of eagles soared back up to 646 breeding pairs in 2001 and 2,000 breeding pairs in 2016. Additionally, IPM reduces the effect on human consumers. So remember, the goal is to maximize intervention over toxic treatments such as pesticides. That also reduces our contamination of groundwater and surface water from the runoff of pesticides from agricultural applications. So for an example, if you were trying to set up an IPM plan for mice, your first step would just simply avoid letting the problem happen in the first place. So you may plug holes in your house where mice may enter. You could get a predator, so you may have a cat, that would deter the mice, hopefully, if your cat is effective. Then you could set up traps, which are not toxic but act to reduce the mouse population. Then your last step would be towards toxicity, which would be using mouse poison, which is not good for the environment or cats. So cons of an IPM program is that they can be more time consuming and costly than just spraying pesticides. So here's an example. This is my friend in their plane over their wheat fields. You could just use a crop duster, spray your pesticides, and be done with it. So having to research the life cycle of your pests, the type of pests, all the different ways that you can interrupt their life cycle rather than just buying the correct pesticide can be costly and time consuming. So to summarize, our goal was to describe integrated pest management and describe the benefits and drawbacks of an integrated pest management plan. Integrated pest management, we learned, is the combination of pest control methods that aim to effectively control pests while minimizing environmental disruptions. It reduces the risk that pesticides pose on human health, wildlife, and the water supply, but it can be complex and expensive to implement and maintain.